there are currently a lot of very concerning things happening within the society of my country of birth, Russia. If you guys have been following the news around Russia, or if you watch my channel for example, you might be aware that since September of 2022, Russia has essentially been conducting these mandatory propaganda lessons in its schools in order to basically teach children as young as, 5-6 years old, basically second graders, about the importance of the special military operation and about why it's so important to love your motherland and also to be ready to give up your life for it. And no, I'm not exaggerating, that is actually what they talk about in these lessons. The happiness of the motherland is worth more than a life. It's not scary to die for your motherland. To love one's motherland is to serve one's motherland. And I've already done a deep dive on this channel in which I talked about the actual content that they teach kids during these propaganda lessons, so if you're interested you should check it out. And quite honestly guys, I do have to tell you that I am rather concerned about the youth of Russia and what they will believe in. Hello Blazers, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian. How you guys doing today? Welcome to a brand new video. And in today's video guys, I want to talk about how Russian propaganda in schools is actually affecting very young Russian kids and also Russian teenagers. And that despite the fact that a lot of people consider these propaganda lessons to be just, a huge joke and to be completely cringe and not much of a danger essentially, I would like to say that actually it's way scarier than you think and that the young minds of Russia are unfortunately already getting poisoned. So just in order to give you guys an introduction and a little vibe, I would like to show you one video. This one here is just one example, right? So this is one music video that I found recently called Cool Kids Наших не бросаем, we don't give up our own. It's basically, fitting into that Z poster propaganda of hashtag своих не бросаем, we don't give up our own. This is essentially a patriotic music video here, released on some sort of like teenager/kids channel on YouTube called Cool Kids. And apart from just, doing silly videos with like Sonic or whatnot, they are also creating Z propaganda for an audience of little children. So, very interesting, right? Now the thing is that guys, this song right here is actually copyrighted. Yes, they actually released this. So that's why I can't really play it to you guys. But basically what's going on in this song is that the kids here are basically rapping and dressed in Russian flag outfits, of course, about the past victories of Russia in different wars and whatnot. So for example here they're talking about Alexander Nevsky and his victories against Swedes and Germans and whatnot, right? They're also talking about Minin Pożarski and the Polish intervention, how Russia overcame that. They talk about the Napoleon Wars here, how Russia, defeated Napoleon as well, etc. About the Second World War, of course, how Russia, destroyed Nazism and stuff. Very, very interesting, right? So really guys, right, what do I have to say? I mean, this is genuinely terrifying. But yes, a lot of the times these days, Russian propaganda does not just use children being in school essentially as an opportunity to feed them propaganda, but also the Russian propaganda is not very shy of using children as a tool of propaganda as well. Maybe perhaps with the idea to convince other children that, supporting Putin and the special military operation and everything is what a true Russian patriot would want. And the reason why I'm very, very concerned is because this brainwashing is happening on every front. Like I already said, these propaganda lessons are just a part of the puzzle because in Russian schools they're organizing classes where the veterans of the special military operation come through and talk to the kids and tell them about their experience and about how it's important to go there and fight the Nazis and everything and how Russia is being destroyed by everybody, of course. You get videos like this. For example, this right here is apparently obviously a 1st September, start of the school celebration in some village apparently or some city. And yes, as you can see, kids are dressed in army hats from World War II, there's children marching with Z's on their back, and obviously this whole thing is meant to be a sort of like a commemoration, the school's tribute to the, to the sacrifice that our boys are doing on the front line and everything in the year 2023, guys. Surely a very, sane country that's definitely heading the right way and is definitely, not going backwards. No, this is definitely a country that is up to provide very, very good opportunities and a very great future for its children.
Стрит-арт-объект разместился на заборе Абаканской школы для глухих и слабослышащих ребят. Рисовали его сами учащиеся образовательного учреждения. Помогали взрослые, волонтеры движения «За наших».
Когда спросили волонтеры, можно или нет использовать забор, конечно, сказал, что можно. Можно и пусть будет до тех пор, пока мы не победим.
So yeah, things like this are also happening all the time as well. Schools are being decorated with Z symbolism, and all the time, pretty much every week, there's no shortage of news articles popping up about how in this or that school in Russia, they ran like events where children were asked to draw pictures for the soldiers on the front line, you know, supporting Z and everything. There are literally tons of these if you Google it, and I'm gonna just put up a couple on the screen here. This is happening all the time. Children are first indoctrinated and force-fed this information because you cannot skip these classes, these are mandatory. And then the children are given a task to draw the patriotic Z symbolic pictures in order to essentially, probably for the schools to make sure that everything is going according to plan and that the kids are actually getting zombified. And recently, for example, guys, I don't know if you've heard, but Kim Jong-un of North Korea has visited Russia, and the head of Primorsky Krai, one of the regions that Kim Jong-un visited, has proposed an idea of school pupil exchange programs where Russian kids will be able to go on a resort in North Korea. Ain't this just absolutely poetic, guys? Once again, Russia and North Korea coming together to show the West what for. Я купил журнал Корея, там тоже хорошо, там товарищ Ким Ир Сен, там тоже что у нас. Я уверен, что у них то же самое и все идет по плану. But I mean, guys, yeah, at this point, to be honest, with the level of propaganda that exists in Russian schools, I don't even know if Russian school pupils will notice that much of a difference with the schools in North Korea. But anyway, here's the thing, right? All the goofs and gaffes and jokes aside, this is very, very concerning because I actually have a bit of anecdotal evidence, right? And basically, guys, one of my good friends has two younger brothers. One of them is in middle school, so about 6th grade or something, and the other is currently almost close to finishing school already. And obviously, you know, due to them being school students in Russia, they have to visit these mandatory lessons called Разговоры о важном, which are essentially these propaganda lessons in Russia. And the thing is, the family that I'm talking about here, they're actually not particularly Z. This is a pretty anti-Putin family and stuff. And they did talk to their children when this new thing was just introduced, essentially saying that, you know, you guys should just, you know, play games on your phone or something and not really listen to what they're saying. So essentially the parents did try to make a point and, you know, tell the children that they're gonna be basically fat nonsense. And the thing is, right, the older kid that is in high school right now and is soon to graduate, he's basically old enough already to see past a lot of the stuff that they say at these lessons. For him, as a kid in high school, this propaganda is not as destructive in a sense. However, something different is actually happening to the younger kid. And here's the story I was essentially told. My friend's dad, so subsequently the dad of the kid as well, right? He is not pro-Putin at all, he doesn't like Putin and he has never liked him pretty much, right? And he was actually walking around with his younger kid, who's in middle school, and the kid suddenly, you know, decided to ask the dad if he likes and supports Vladimir Putin. To which the dad essentially said, no, not really. And you know what the 11-12-year-old kid responded with? He responded with, really? You don't like Putin? Are you against Russia? And the dad obviously was not very pleased to hear that, because he did realize at that point that apparently these lessons that they told their kids to ignore, they are making a slight impact. Because when your 11-12-year-old kid says that if you don't like the president, you're like against the country of Russia, it's pretty obvious where that comes from, right? Because obviously at these lessons, these kids are being told that if you ever disagree with the government, if you don't support the president, you know, the great leader, if you do not support what Russia is doing with its special military operation, then you must be against Russia, then you must be a traitor, then you must be sort of turning away and betraying your own country. And this is obviously a very classic trope that has been there since, you know, the Soviet times. And this is actually a point that I raised in my video, The Russia I Grew Up In That Doesn't Exist Anymore. I believe that the reason why a lot of, you know, Russians, especially the older generation, really believe this Z propaganda these days is because it actually directly feeds into and uses talking points and wording from old Soviet propaganda, right? Because these people, when they were young, they were already taught, right, that the West is evil, that they want to destroy us. These are the things that these people were taught when they were young in the Soviet Union, and now that they're older, this Z propaganda, the propaganda of the Putin regime, closely coincides with its talking points with that old propaganda that they used to already believe in. So it all just comes together in a beautiful brainwashing cocktail. And I guess Russia understands this very well, because obviously they understand that in order to keep their ideology going, with fresh blood essentially, they have to start early and start feeding this propaganda to kids as young as like 6-7 years old. Just so essentially that they will get people people that will be loyal to the government and, you know, to the leader, to the presidents, since their very childhood, right? And pretty much what's happening here is that they're feeding these very young Russians with the idea that the West is out to get them, and unfortunately, I believe that this propaganda will backfire a lot in the future. If there's ever another nationalistic resurgence in Russia, these kids that have been fed these ideas might remember those from the back of their head, you know what I mean? And I personally think that that is very, very scary, and it's even scarier that it's actually working. This one case that I just told you guys about, it's not the only one. I've read stuff on the internet, in threads about, you know, parents talking about how their kids, you know, came back from school and said this Z thing or that Z thing. And yes, it's working and it's truly terrifying. Now, one thing as well that I do find very ironic about this whole thing, right, is that back in like 2017 or 2018, the Russian government and the Russian propaganda was actually describing certain oppositional activists, such as Alexei Navalny, for example, as so-called political I will blur that word probably because I don't want to get demonetized, but you know what I'm saying.
И сразу лозунги «Дети против власти», «Крестовый поход детей».
Очевидно, что Навальный стал увлекаться политической
А вот что касается несовершеннолетних детей, может быть, законодательно нужно поставить запрет для вовлечения детей в подобного рода массовые акции.
Essentially, the whole point was that Alexei Navalny apparently has a lot of very young people and like school students or whatever in his protests against Putin and against corruption. And the whole point was basically that Alexei Navalny is like a sly, terrible person that preys on kids and is indoctrinating kids with this liberal propaganda in order to destroy their brains. And it's like complete fucking nonsense in the first place, right? Because even before, Russia has already been, you know, playing with the idea of using propaganda in schools. A lot of the times in Russian schools, they would have these invited politicians from United Russia, the party. There was even one event like this at my school, I remember, when I was a kid. We had like a local politician who actually studied in our school. So like the whole point was that, look kids, what a great man came out of our, you know, alma mater. And that's not too bad, I guess, but I'm pretty sure that that guy was, you know, just a corrupt motherfucker like the rest of them, so. But yes, I do find it really funny that the Russian propaganda and certain Russian politicians and propaganda pundits would call Alexei Navalny like a person that's preying on children and brainwashing them with political propaganda, but at the same time, the Russian government thinks that it's completely fine to start feeding propaganda to kids as young as 7 years old, 6 years old, and they've been doing this in a more concealed, you know, less Z way for decades now. So obviously, guys, yes, you know, the Russian government is very principled and also never lies as well. So definitely I don't see any, you know, hypocrisy or any, you know, I don't see anything conflicting here totally, because obviously, guys, it's for me but not for thee. We can indoctrinate kids and teach them that opposing any authority is actually terrible, and actually opposing authority means that you're a traitor to your homeland. But also, if you try to tell them anything otherwise, you are a political beep. You already know the word, right? So, very interesting, and the point that I'm trying to make in this video, guys, to be honest, is that it's just really sad because I, for example, I was born in 1998, so I went to school from 2004 until 2015. I've never really had much propaganda in school, to be honest, and it was a very, very different time in Russia, and to be honest, I felt like I was growing up in a more liberal country that is sort of aiming to be friendly with the West and whatnot, with the rest of the world. I already talked about this once again in my video about how Russia that I grew up in no longer exists. But yeah, I believe that a big part of why my generation has slightly different views, at least a lot of people in my generation do, and why a lot of us don't support what's going on is because we were not taught things like this in school. We were not taught to hate. We were not taught to not question authority. And I guess now Russia sees the kinds of, you know, youth that grew up in a sort of, you know, free space with less propaganda, and they understand that they've made a terrible mistake, because this is no way to control people, which is what they want to do. So yeah, really the point of my video here is Russia has a big societal problem with its children and the propaganda they're being fed, and all I want to say, guys, if you're Russian especially, of course, please talk to your children. But even if you're not Russian, right, just please talk to your children, because as adults, if you have kids, you are pretty much responsible for what your child thinks in a certain way, right? And a lot of you who have kids might not even be aware what things they believe in and what opinions they're being fed, either in school or online or whatever. So yes, just please talk to your children, you know, make sure they're all there. And especially if you're in Russia and if your kid goes to a Russian school, please talk to them and see what they think, and maybe try to convince them otherwise, because this is not great. Anyways guys, I guess that is going to be pretty much it for today's video. Sorry guys, I'm absolutely sweating my ass off in this one. It's fucking hot. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's video, then please make sure to slap the like on it. And as well guys, if you want to support my channel additionally, then you can go over to the link down in the description, become a YouTube member. It's basically like YouTube's own version of Patreon, a monthly donation. It helps me out a lot, so please do it. If you don't, your balls will fall off, like I already said. If you want to do a one-time donation, you can also do a super thanks underneath this video. And yeah guys, that is going to be pretty much it for today's video. I cannot wait to be over with this because I'm sweating like a bastard. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.